Welcome to Rising to Excellence Admin Training. My name is Diana Rockwell, and I'll be your presenter today. We are discussing perfection versus detailed-oriented and how it affects your daily work life. Rising to Excellence provides many webinar topics focused on the administrative professional and the duties we do every day. Let's get started. Our struggle to do excellent work is a daily thing. So today we will be looking at what is perfectionism, why is it good, why is it bad, and what should I change? Sometimes it's a minute-by-minute thing. Many times you think you did a good job, only to be asked to change most of the document to better suit your boss's needs or desires. Today we will discuss the difference between being detail-oriented and expecting to perform perfectly. Since we are on this earth born as human beings, perfectionism is unattainable, no matter what anyone else says. No one is infallible. Expectations need to be tempered with realistic goals and standards. It is said that perfectionism is not a series of habits, skills, and talents, but instead is how you feel about yourself when you can't attain it. We are all human, some more than others. Many of us are really good at what we do. Our grammar and syntax are spectacular. You are creative in getting things done. You are masterful at asking the right questions and have a vast network of people willing to drop everything they're doing to assist you in getting things done. How many times have you caught yourself preparing your work to others' work and feel you fall short? We tend to be our own worst critic and are harder on ourselves than we are on others. According to Anna Sandhu, in her October 12, 2018 article, How Perfectionism Affects Your Mental Health, she asserts that your inner voice can be more scathing than any boss and make you procrastinate any task you fear of being a failure. She claims, and quote, experts tend to define perfectionism as a combination of excessively high personal standards and overly critical self-evaluations, end quote. The leading authorities, Gordon Flett and Paul Hewitt, in the field of perfectionism have studied this topic for decades. What is perfectionism, and when should you worry? Flett and Hewitt identified three main facets of perfectionism in a landmark study published about 3 decades ago. What they found was, number 1, self-oriented perfectionism, number 2, other-oriented perfectionism, and 3, socially prescribed perfectionism. The YouTube video, The Perils of Perfectionism, gives a great explanation of their study. The impact on physical and mental health can be enormous. A different study conducted by Thomas Curran and Andrew P. Hill of the UK explained that socially prescribed perfectionism is the most debilitating of the 3 types identified. They studied 40,000 college students in the UK, Canada, and the US. Anxiety, depression, and suicidal ideation are some of the problems specialists have repeatedly linked to this form. Over half of people who died by suicide were described by loved ones as perfectionists. This is termed as toxic perfectionism and it seems to hit young people, meaning teens and young adults, at a higher level. College students in this study exhibited traits of self-oriented perfectionism, and during the time frame of 1989 to 2016, the percentage of these known traits increased 33%. These individuals who identify as attaching irrational importance to being perfect hold a higher level of premature death. Some studies suggest that it may explain why people with bipolar also experience anxiety. Physical symptoms include high blood pressure as well as the anxiety and depression as contributing factors. Also, they have a harder time coping and often experience diabetes, Crohn's disease, colitis, IBS, GERD, and many other digestive tract issues. Living with a harsh inner voice is exhausting, and you never feel done or satisfied with your work. Obsessing over whether you use the Oxford comma in all the cases you should can find yourself waking up at night worrying about it. So why is it good? Use the good to your advantage. The good news is that there are ways to combat those inner voices, the anxiety, and lighten the depression just by changing your focus and managing expectations of you and by you. You do not always need to get an A+ on that term paper. After all, you worked really hard and did your best. The student saw it as a demonstration of how much of a failure he was. If he'd been perfect, he wouldn't have had to work so hard to achieve it. I remember a portion of an interview with Donny Osmond. I think it was with Piers Morgan. I never realized that he was a perfectionist, but the more I thought back at other interviews with he and his sister Marie, it did make somewhat of sense. They were called the one-take Osmonds when they did their TV show. What people didn't know was that they'd been up most of the night practicing so that when it came to tape the show, it would be perfect. When he was performing his long run of Joseph the Technicolor Dreamcoat, he suffered great bouts of self-doubt and had to maintain a lean physique due to his costume, which was just a loincloth. One night he told his wife that he just couldn't go on. When she asked him why, he said he couldn't give an excellent performance that night. She looked at him and said, "Then just do a mediocre performance. You know the lines, you know the moves, you know the music. Just do what you can. You know your fans will love you no matter what." He agreed to go on and found her advice extremely helpful. He determined that he didn't need to give 100% every minute. Who can and maintain it for any length of time? How many performers do you hear when on stage sick or exhausted? How many collapse in the middle of a performance because the show must go on and they can't disappoint their fans? They need to practice self-care, go to spas, go on vacation, disappear for a week or two just to be with their family. Even Celine Dion sang so much it damaged her vocal cords. She was only allowed to speak every other day if she wanted to keep her career. And I hear Reba McEntire is going through a very similar situation. The first thing I want to stress is that failure is not a weakness. You do not learn or grow if all you do is win and have success. It tends to leave people feeling entitled, spoiled, and self-important. The failures are what push you to achieve your goals harder, find new ways to do things, and strive for that excellence threshold. You can be detail-oriented, even meticulous, and still manage your expectations from yourself and others. Your boss should not expect perfect work. Good work, yes. I had a boss once who either loved what I did or made veiled insults like whoever did this was incompetent. The one situation I'm thinking of had one character typo. His displeasure was that he presented it to the client. However, I had asked him to review this document several times, and he didn't review it. There was also a misspelled word in a newsletter in the first sentence on the front page. The word was an actual word, but was wrong for the context. No less than 5 people proofread that newsletter over several days, and not one picked up on the error. I'm not blaming everyone else. I'm just saying that you need to develop systems to avoid these types of errors from occurring. Have others read your work. Proofread the document backwards. Read over the document several times for different purposes. Once for content, once for grammar, once for overall feel and consistency. Put it down and go do something else and come back to it. Hopefully letting it sit overnight if you have the time. Being on a short deadline leads towards rush jobs, and rush jobs tend to be done so quickly they end up sloppy and look half done. Try to manage those deadlines by planning in advance so you are not in that situation often. If something does go out wrong, all you can do is apologize and try to find new ways to avoid it happening again. Bosses will say, I don't mind the mistake if you learned something along the way. I feel that admins are the problem solvers. We are all human and prone to making mistakes, whether it's a typo, a math error, or you assume facts not in evidence and made a decision incorrectly. Hindsight is always 20/20, so even though you are diligent yet flexible, you persevere in the face of adversity, you manage your stress and procrastination, be kind to yourself. Your self-talk becomes your reality. Based on the laws of attraction, what you believe, you bring more of to you. For example, you did something incorrectly, not on purpose, mind you, but the result was wrong and had to be redone. You mentally beat yourself up, calling yourself a stupid idiot. How could you have done something so bad? You'll never get ahead this way. You just damaged your work reputation, and there's no way to repair it. Guess what? You would be right. Self-limiting beliefs become your reality just by saying those words inside your head. You don't need to say them out loud even. Pep talks, nice words, you'll get them next time vibes should be the thoughts of the day. You'll be amazed how quickly things will turn around. Ever have things start to go wrong early in the day and they just keep compounding to where you think you should go back home and pull the covers over your head until it blows over? That's usually due to your negative self-talk. So let's discuss why perfectionism is bad. The mind is an interesting thing. We don't really understand much about how it functions or how different people connect the dots differently. But we are making strides into that area. One thing to one person is fine, just a minor inconvenience or a mild bit of humor. Another person loses their composure and flies off the handle or laughs hysterically. Siblings react totally differently to the same events in their lives. One person handles the death of a parent, spouse, or child according to normal expectations. Another enters into depression and cannot maintain a normal lifestyle. This type of thought process, perfectionism, is a lot like self-narcissism. It tears down your self-esteem, unhinges your normal thought processes from something that can be handled easily to a catastrophe. We turn inward and stop communicating. We develop ways to cope, like with OCD, touching the back door lock 32 times before you can ease your mind enough to go to bed. This is different than my mother thinking she left the iron on or the dryer running after we pulled away from the curb before starting on the 24-hour trip to visit my grandparents 1,500 miles away. You do want to manage your coping mechanisms so you don't go down those rabbit holes. You may want to seek professional help to make sure you haven't already started. But knowing you have a problem is always the first step to conquering it. My father was an addict, as were many of his fellow Army soldiers from World War II. He smoked from the age of 10, and he drank. But he would give his eye teeth for pills. It didn't matter what kind. He just wanted pills. He drank when he couldn't get any pills. The only help in those days, in the late 1960s, was Alcoholics Anonymous. I remember going to the meeting where he was making his "I'm an alcoholic" speech. I was about 8 years old, and all those old men scared me. They were mostly vets, and the air in the room was blue with smoke, and many hadn't bathed for several days. The depression and sadness in the room was very evident. Right after the meeting, my parents started going to group therapy with other members of AA. I'm still friends with a couple of the other children from that group. My father decided that he could not stop drinking in the house where he started. So we moved 2 blocks away from a 3-bedroom to a 4-bedroom townhome. It was glorious. We all had separate rooms. We had a half bath downstairs. We had a fireplace. And he never did drink again. But the damage was already done. And it was too extensive. And he passed away 3 years later. I gave my parents kudos for making that step to get help when it wasn't in fashion and was looked down upon in society. My siblings and I were still somewhat messed up from the emotional abuse, but at least they tried. My mom has now been a widow longer than she was married. She's been in and out of therapy for many years, and I believe she did her best with what she had to work with. Just always know there is room for improvement, even if you are that rock star admin we all strive to be. Over the past couple of years, I've seen changes in how we support our bosses, and especially our executives. We discovered that you don't necessarily need to go to the office to give effective support. The old way to support was for the admin to take all the responsibility, be the reminder of deadlines, the keeper of passwords, the flower buying, dry clean picking up, wedding present buyer. Covering for your boss if they missed a deadline or a meeting was commonplace. In short, hand-holding, or as I call it, babysitting, was the norm. I believe that bosses also realize they can handle setting up their own calendar events and setting up Zoom or Teams meetings on the fly. They had to become more self-sufficient during the pandemic, so they did. Years ago, if there was a mix-up with a meeting, whether the location or the participants, there was hell to pay. No longer does that seem to be the response. All of this is good news for those of us who are anxious but still want to please. Executives are more willing to be understanding when things go wrong, as they often do, to no fault of anyone in particular. Our college president has said to the campus community as part of our goals to think everyone has the best of intentions. Not everyone can get there just yet, and I'm struggling with a few people who have had a history of not really performing well, but it will be a process to do so, and I will work on it. However, it does take some of the pressure off when something is left not done or half done or doesn't get done. Recently, I've had a brain block with meetings. My new supervisor, who is a vice president, sets up group meetings and leaves notes for me about meeting room reservations or other instructions in the description box of the calendar event. I was not reading them because no other boss had done this for me in the past. I had several harrowing occurrences of a meeting about to start in 30 or 60 minutes and not having a place to meet. In one specific case, we were ready to start the first of many recurring meetings, one she had asked me to find a meeting room for. The first one was supposed to happen in her next door office mate's office. I totally forgot and hadn't said anything. She asked me to schedule the next meetings, and of course, I went to the software that is the one we use, and I'd already set up the meetings, but I didn't remember that I did. What I had not done was edit the event to add the room location. All my life, I have been just short of doing things completely. It showed up in school, always getting between 85 and 94 on tests, never 100. I'm always just this close to being perfect. It's haunted me for years because of the stigma and repetitive nature of it. Try as hard as I can, and I still don't measure up. I change procedures. I add coping mechanisms. I check and double check. I make lists. I leave email reminders unread as pending items, etc. I still don't quite measure up. I believe that I was hardwired during childhood, both from at-home life and my church life. My parents started a church when I was 4, so that if you don't do everything right, number 1, you're not lovable, and number 2, you're going to hell. Well, no 8-year-old wants to go to hell, so every time I said the word darn or shoot, which was not allowed in my house, or told a lie, even if it was a small little white lie, I would go up in the front during the altar call until my pastor told me to stop. Talk about rejection. That's God rejecting you. because still you're not good enough. So the question was, why is striving for perfection bad? Because of these scenarios. I'm sure each of you have your own experiences with it. It's not the strive part that's bad. It's the emotional effect not reaching it has on your psyche. Waking up at 2 a.m. wondering if you remembered to do something important. Worrying all weekend because of the email your boss sent you at 8 p.m. on Friday night was about something not done or perceived as done incorrectly. The headaches, the stomach aches, the digestion issues, high blood pressure, GERD, etc. are all side effects of stressing from not reaching perfection. When we suggest lowering our standards, it's not an all-out 20% cut in efficiency. That's not what we mean. It's that time when you are upset with yourself because you forgot to order flowers for the speaker of an event, or they didn't show up in time because it's your responsibility. Just remember that that speaker doesn't know your tradition of giving flowers or a certificate or whatever nicety that didn't get done. The speaker and audience have no idea that it was on your checklist. Give yourself a break and reassess whether it's really worth the hassle of providing it for the next event. During the pandemic, we found we can do the same or better with less. Allow yourself to say, this is enough. I am enough. I have a saying when people compliment me. I'm embarrassed and I don't receive them well. So I tend to say things like, I may have moments of brilliance, but just can't maintain it over any given length of time. So I'm basically managing my boss's expectation so they don't think I can do this every day. So what that means is I occasionally have a good idea that helps in a situation or to streamline a process or whatever, but don't expect me to come through often or on a consistent basis. I can't always be 100%, and no one else can either. It is my opinion that bosses often hope their people are better than they are themselves in order to make them look good, which works to a certain extent when what we should be doing is seeing the opportunities for growth, streamlining processes, and personal accountability. Remember when you were a teenager and had body aches and were exhausted for a couple of weeks? Those growing pains were your body's way of saying, relax, I'm doing something important. The opposite of failure, according to thesaurus.com, is betterment, improvement, increase, rise, success, win, accomplishment, and benefit. And the opposite of perfection is failure, frustration, imperfection, inferiority, damage, deficiency, flaw, and incompleteness. You can hear the tone of those words and wonder why anyone would want to adhere to them. But when I understand that most of this isn't decided by us, but is a result of others' expectations for us. We don't want to be yelled at. We don't want our parents upset with us or to punish us. We don't want to be embarrassed walking into a meeting late because we didn't plan for traffic or a flat tire. We can use the what-if scenarios incessantly to alleviate the stress of something gone wrong. But think of the freedom you gained by not having to worry that you'll be 5 minutes late to work or to a meeting. You can literally drive yourself crazy by succumbing to OCD, anxiety, or depression not to mention the physical issues that your doctor can only treat the symptoms of because the cause is self-made. The first thing to change is your attitude. Easily said, right? It may take a while to calm down your inner self-talk in the negative. It may take a while for the physical results to fall away. It may take a while to change your habits. Fake it until you make it mentally does work, and it's so worth the effort. It may take some soul searching, but try to resolve the need to be perfect. It could have been the result of an over-demanding parent, spouse, teacher, or boss. You could be a people pleaser, and we all know they never succeed because you can't read their minds. Recalibrate your goals and expectations. Establish boundaries in all your relationships, but especially those with your boss. Be kind to yourself with your inner dialogue. Know you're not alone in this area. Seek support groups like on Facebook or Instagram, or professional help if necessary. The second thing to change is your work process. Even in today's computer society, there's still a lot of manual processes done in the office. That alleviates the possibility for human error if we can automate them. Your IT department may be able to help in many of those situations. Practice the self-help of checking and double-checking. You may miss something the first time, but catch it the second. Put it away and come back to it and check it again. If it's important, have someone else proofread it. Don't hit reply all unless you really need to. Some people do it out of habit. I remember seeing an interview with a rather famous journalist some years ago, Linda Ellerbee. I believe she had a Nickelodeon show. She shared a story about how she was fired for sending an email complaining about her boss to her best friend because she accidentally sent it to her boss instead. These types of habits can save your job, your peace of mind, and your career. Develop a system of reminders. Use to-do lists, keeping messages unread in your inbox. Blind copy yourself on emails requesting a response, and follow up on items if you haven't heard within a prescribed length of time, depending on the situation. Write things down. It actually helps to remember them. It does something in your brain, and studies have proven that it does. Print out the email that needs action and mark it with the date and time completed. I use this method for planning meetings with several participants after I send the times available, and follow up as needed. Follow up is essential and will help you be that rockstar admin. By developing best practices for reminders and follow-ups, you can usually get things done timely without your boss's need to intervene. There may come a time to escalate, and that's easily accomplished by keeping your boss in the loop. Some people keep a rolling pending list for their boss. It is used in their one-on-one meetings, keeps the boss in the know about what is still outstanding. They may need to be reporting to their own boss on certain tasks, so this helps both of you. It also helps letting things from falling through the cracks when you get too busy to remember them. I also use my calendar for reminders, usually something that's time sensitive but has a longer time frame for completion. For example, knowing and remembering to suspend a phone line over summer break for someone who's scheduled for surgery. You know it in your head, but the date is over a holiday or a weekend. Having a pop-up reminder on your phone helps you not miss that important deadline. It's easy to be negative and harsh on yourself. You tell yourself that you never get anything right and everyone is against you, knowing that's not the case most of the time. Put affirmations around your workspace, your mirror at home, in your car. Have them pop up on your phone every day. And become familiar with the mental health warning signs. You may not even know that you have 7 of the 10 symptoms of anxiety, and those stomach problems you've been having may not be from something else, but from not addressing your anxiety. Here are some suggestions to help you in this journey to overcome perfectionism. Establish realistic expectations, practice self-care, and just sometimes unplug. I'll leave that up for a second so you can jot down what you find may work for you. Okay. Rejecting perfectionism is a way to honor your own humanity. Be kind with your self-talk. Unlearn unhealthy habits and practice self-care. Be aware of the warning signs of mental illness, of OCD, anxiety, and depression. Thank you for joining us as we explore the issues around perfectionism. Rising to Excellence Admin Training is committed to providing webinars focused on the administrative profession and its daily duties and tasks. Contact us for more information on upcoming webinars, and we'll be posting more soon. Bye for now.